Section 2.6 is function notation. You guys have seen this for at least 2 years. You've done it in geometry, or what we call Math 2, and also in Algebra 1, which we call Math 1 now, right? But function notation is basically this. A long time ago, I think in like 6th or 7th grade, you guys learned this notation, okay? It looks like this. They say, okay, y can also be written as f of x. Okay? Do you guys remember seeing that stuff? F of x. Okay, function notation. So f is a function f. So before you maybe saw things like y equal to negative 2x plus 1, or y equal to 1/2 x minus 3. All we're going to do is basically, instead of y, we're going to write f of x. Okay? So this is, I guess, as simple as I can put it. Now, of course, it can get a little bit more complicated once we plug numbers in. But I want you guys to see how it looks. But that's all it is. We're just changing y into f of x. That's called function notation. Okay, f of x. F of x means a function f composed of x variables. So let me put that right here. Okay, so a function f composed of the variable x. Meaning inside of the equation, there's x's, right? So negative 2x plus 1, 1/2 x minus 3. Okay? So it's a function named f. So the letter on the outside of the parentheses is the name of it. So there could be f of x, h of x, g of x, m of x. Okay? Anything of x. Okay? Now we try to stay away from O of x, because that looks like 0 times x. We try to stay away from S of x, because that looks like 5x. Right? Certain things, we don't really use the letter L of x, unless the letter L is in cursive. Then we might use it. But certain letters we won't use, but for the most part, any letter is okay. All right? So you could have A of x, B of x, C of x, okay? But it's a function composed of a specific variable, okay? So just to kind of give you an idea of how this is going to work. So just a real quick thing right here. Given, this is not an example, but it kind of is. Given y equal to, let's say, 2x plus 1, okay? And I'm also going to write it like this. F of x equals 2x plus 1. Okay, so given this. All right, so what I want to do is I want to plug in the number 3. Okay, so I'm going to put right here, find what is it? Find the solution if x equals 3. So let me show you what it looks like under both situations. We're going to focus on the right side because that's what we're going to be doing now. But let's see what happens with both of them. On the left equation, okay, on the left equation, y equals 2x plus 1. All you would do is write y equals 2 times 3 plus 1, right? Very simple. 2 times 3 is 6. So y is equal to 6 plus 1. And 6 plus 1 is 7. All right, no big deal. Easy, right? This is stuff you guys have been doing for years. The right side is the same exact answer, but look at the way it looks. Instead of f of x, I'm going to put f of 3. That means I'm plugging in a 3 for x. Okay, it does not mean f times 3. I get a lot of students that will do this as the next step. They say, oh, that's 3f. That's not right. Okay, I understand why you do that because it looks like it's f times 3. So f times 3 is 3f. True. But that's function notation. That doesn't mean f times x. It means f composed of x, f of x. Okay? So f of 3 means plug in a 3. So it basically just looks like this. 2 times 3 plus 1, which is 6 plus 1, which is also 7. Okay? So f of 3 is 7. Same answer, a different look. Okay? Now you might say, well, why do we change it? If it's the same thing, why do we have to create new notation? Well, the harder the math gets, the more important that we use specific notation to denote what we want to do. In calculus, we use a lot of function notation. We really don't use y's and x's to solve things anymore. We do like f of x, f primes of x, f double primes of x. So we do function notation. It's really important that we move over to that, okay? And this kind of gets you used to it, okay? So what does your homework look like today? So let me show you. There's two main parts, okay? We're going to do the first part, which is basically most of your homework. It looks like this. So it's going to be a little sprinkle of everything here. So we're going to do evaluate each function. That's going to be the example. Evaluate each function. And like I said, this is basically going to be numbers 1 through 13, and then the last 4 are different, okay? So these are homework problems. This is what the first one looks like. Let's do this one. G of n, notice not f of x, it's g of n. That means it's a function g, and the equation is going to have n variables in it. So there's going to be n's in there. So look at how it looks. 3n minus 4. So you see how the equation has n's in it? That's why it's g of n. If it was g of t, there would be 3t minus 4. If it was g of f, it would say 3f minus 4. Okay, so the thing inside the parentheses is the variable we're using. Okay, now they're going to put a little semicolon and they're going to say find g of negative 3. In other words, plug in negative 3. Okay, so g of negative 3 is 3 times negative 3 minus 4. 3 times negative 3, that's negative 9 minus 4. And negative 9 minus 4, that's negative 13. And this is your answer. That's it. Function notation is not hard. You're just plugging in a number and solving, okay? It's not meant to be difficult. It's just a new way to write it, so they want you to get used to, like, oh, if you put a number in here, that means they want you to plug it in, okay? So that's one of your homework problems. Let's go to one that looks a little bit more difficult. But they're all basically the same idea, okay? Let's try this one. F of n is equal to negative 3 absolute value of n minus 1 minus 1. And they're going to say find f of 3 this time. So not negative 3, just 3. In other words, this time we're plugging in the value of 3. Then we'll do a different one here. So I'm going to plug in a 3 for every n value, okay? So f of 3 is equal to negative 3 absolute value of 3 minus 1 minus 1. Well, 3 minus 1 is 2, so negative 3 absolute value of 2 minus 1. What's the absolute value of 2? 2. So, all right, negative 3 times 2 minus 1. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6 minus 1. And negative 6 minus 1 is negative 7. And you're done. Again, you don't have to do all these steps. Okay, I actually talked to somebody from my 6th period a couple days ago, and she told me, I know that you always say that you write too many steps. She's like, but I need it. She's like, I need to see it. And I'm like, that's why I do it, because there's always one at least that needs to see everything. So again, if you guys can do this faster in your head, go for it. Okay? You don't have to take all these steps. Do whatever. As long as you're getting the same answer, do it however you'd like. Okay? Because that means that you figured it out a different way and you can do it quicker. That's great. Awesome. I'm not trying to stall you and make you work slower. You work at your pace. I'm just showing you this is probably every single step you need, but not or sorry, every single step that could be done, but not required. Okay? Not required. All right, so we're going to skip over to a separate little piece. Still the same idea, but this is what it's going to look like. F of x equal to 2.8x plus 3.8. And then they say find f of negative 8.1. Go ahead and write that down while I get a calculator out here, because I don't feel like doing that by hand. So basically just plug in negative 8.1 into your equation and solve, okay? So f of negative 8.1 is equal to 2.8 times negative 8.1 plus 3.8. So let me multiply that out. 2.8 times 8.1 is 22.68, but negative, so negative 22.68 plus 3.8, and that comes out to, whoops, sorry about that, give me a second, negative 18.88. Now, the instructions, when you guys get to these problems, it says round to the nearest hundredths if necessary. Nearest hundredths. That means two numbers after the decimal. But when I did the calculation, all it gave me was negative 18.88. It's already at the hundredths. Okay? This is your hundredths place. Now, if this would have been a 3 right there, then I would leave it alone. If this is a 7, that 7 makes that 8 with the arrow, that becomes a 9, right? What's the lowest number that rounds it up? 5, right? So if it's a 5, you round. If it's below 5, leave it alone, okay? But this number happens to end right here, so I don't have to round it at all, okay? So if you have to use a calculator, just make sure you follow the directions. It says round it, okay? Now, I'm going to do one more example, and then we're going to move to something else. But notice this one was a little different because they wanted you to use calculators with it. And then this one is going to be function notation by plugging in other variables. So here we go. Let's do this one. G of x is equal to 4x plus 3. And then they say find g of x plus 4. I know that looks weird because normally we're used to plugging in numbers. Okay? We're used to seeing plug in g of 4 or g of 0, something like that. Okay? But now they say, instead of plugging in a number into x, let's plug in an expression. Okay? Let's plug in an expression. So they want me to get this whole thing and plug it in right there. Right where the x is. Instead of it just being x, they say, well, let's make it x plus 4. So this is what it's going to look like. And we will eventually, yes. Yeah, not on the first step, but yes, on the second step. She asked if we had to distribute. So we will. We're going to put 4 times x plus 4. Notice it's no longer just x. It's x plus 4 plus 3. So notice how the x became x plus 4. Everything else stood the same. Now, like you said, we're going to distribute. We're going to distribute right here. So we get 4x plus 16 plus 3. Finish up your addition. 16 plus 3 is 19. So 4x plus 19 is your answer. Any questions on those 4? You guys want me to go over something on the numbers 1 through 4 before we go on to the last portion of it? All right. So, last part. So the last part has graphs, but the good news is you don't have to graph anything. It's just going to have some graphs. Okay? I think the instructions say answer the following questions. It says answer the following questions. Now I'm going to draw a pretty decent sized grid, okay? Because we're going to answer things based on this grid. So there, like I said, there is a graph, but you're not going to be graphing anything. Sorry? I can't understand. Well, yeah, you might want to draw it because we're going to get all of our information from that graph. But yeah, you on your homework, you won't have to graph anything at all. It's all going to be pre-done. All the points are going to be pre-placed. Everything's going to be done for you. Here, obviously, we have to do it because I can't like magically transfer it to you guys. I'm sure there's a device. Well, actually, I know there's a device. If you guys all had your Chromebooks open, and if you all had Microsoft accounts, I can like import your accounts into this OneNote through the internet, and I could share my screen with you on your computer, and then you can like write on it yourself, which we were gonna do, but then they stopped doing it. But there's like an add-in that I can put into this program to do classes, but they decided not to do it. I thought it was terrible because I thought that'd be pretty cool. You guys can interact with me on your own thing. So like if you're like, Mr. V, I don't get this, I'm like, show me where, I'll give you permission. You draw all over my notes, right? And then we'd kind of discuss it together, right? And then once we were done, I would just like push you back out, and it would take everything we did and remove it so it can go back to nice clean notes again. So that was a really good idea, but then they said, nah. I think it's because there weren't many people that were going to use it. I was going to be one, probably Miss Smith would be another one. And I think it would just maybe be us two. So they're like, we can't spend that much money for that. And I'm like, but it's going to really help the kids. And they're like, it's okay. So yeah, it was going to be a lot of money though. So here we go. Let me put some dots, okay? We'll put a dot at 3, 2. So put a dot at 3, 2. I'll put a dot at -2, 5. I'm going to put 2 more dots, okay? I'm going to put a dot at 0, -4. And let's put a dot at negative, I don't know, -3, -1. So right there. So I have 4 dots, one at 3, 2, one at -2, 5, another one at -3, -1, and the last one is at 0, -4. That means we're doing 4 more little problems, but don't worry, we don't really do much work. Okay? It's not a lot of work. Number 1. Now, by the way, these are not from your homework, okay? But these are pretty much just like your homework. Sorry, this should be number 5. All right, so first question. What is f of 3? What is f of 3 equal to? In other words, I'm plugging in an x. What is it supposed to give me? The y, right? It gives me the y. Every time I plug in the value to the function, it gives me the y value. So let me go really quick, and I'm going to label my points to make this a little easier. Oops, I'm sorry. Make sure I do it right. 3, 2, -2, 5, -3, -1, and 0, -4. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to label all my points because I want this to be as easy as possible. Okay, so all right, now I know. So according to the points, let's go in from quadrant 1 around in a circle, okay? If I plug in x equal to 3, my answer should be 2. Because that's the y value, right? 3, 2. This is what they're asking me for this problem. They say if I plug in x equal to 3, what do you get for y? I get a 2. So all I need to do is say f of 3 is equal to 2. That's it. Because that's what it is right there. You can see it. 3, 2. X is 3, y is 2. Okay? Now, They might say, number 6 here, what is f of 0? So if x is 0, what's y? Negative 4. So I'm going to write f of 0 is negative 4. That's pretty easy. It's not too bad. And then they say, all right, let's try doing this backwards. Not that this is more difficult, but sometimes it's a little tricky. What is x if f of x equals negative 1? Say again? Negative 3. Good. Because they said, all right, this time I'm telling you what the y value is. Y is negative 1. So then you look at your points and you're like, y negative 1, it's right here. So that means the x value would be negative 3. Okay? So I'm going to put x equals negative 3. Right? And I'm going to put number 8 right here to the side. I know it's going to look a little weird, but that way I don't have to scroll out of the way. What is x if f of x equals to 5? X is what? Negative 2. Yeah, it's negative 2. And that's it. Negative 2. So, I mean, the homework today is not supposed to be difficult. It really isn't. It could get a little confusing sometimes, but it's not meant to be. Okay, so if you're having any issues, let me know. But it's supposed to be very straightforward. Okay, so hopefully you guys can work on it, get it done in class, and not worry about math this weekend. Okay, so let me stop this, and I'll give you guys homework.